Join us in learning about the stories and the people who inspire us. This is the Mission 43 podcast. I'm Dan Nelson.
And I'm Brian Madden. Idaho is our home. The military is what we did.
So welcome back to the Mission 43 podcast. We're doing something a little different today. So Brian and I want to share some stories, I guess, for lack of a better term, about September 11th, 2001, and how that was a formative experience in our lives, the lives of our families, and the lives of thousands of other families that ended up being affected in one way or another by the ensuing global war on terror.
Yeah, I think this will be interesting. We're hitting 20 years. You were wounded because of that, and that was a huge impact on our life. We spent a lot of time away, so it'd be kind of fun going back and forth and maybe learning some more stuff about our experiences.
Yeah, fun and not so fun. It all is formative, right? Like, we are who we are because, or at least I will say for me, I am who I am, largely in part because of the experiences in almost entire adult life. I graduated high school in 2001, so my entire adult life after that was shaped by the events of this one morning. Yeah. And we've done a lot as far as Mission 43. I think it's, we really put a focus on 9/11 because of our member demographic of largely transitioning veterans, which happened to be from post 9/11 era. So in working with primarily post 9/11 veterans, it's hard to think of a day in time that made such remarkable impact.
Yeah. And we've done a bunch of different things for 9/11. Yeah. Early on, it was pretty small scale, and Tony Torres, who used to run Hired Heroes USA, he's honestly the guy who came up with the idea or said, hey, we need to do something. And we used to have the flag of honor, had all the names, and we did things where carried around one of the parks in Meridian to starting at Lucky Peak one year and handed off a flag. People had, kind of met up at certain locations and handed it off throughout the valley, going all the way to Caldwell. It was like 45 miles or so, pretty cool. And, now we're where we are today in Eagle Bike Park. And
yeah, it's pretty insane. I think so I got hurt in 2017 and then wasn't back home too long before September 11th, 2018 rolled around. And, I live right near the Eagle Bike Park, and I heard about your guys' event. Mm-hmm. You probably invited me. And I came there, and it was small. Like, it was, it went throughout the day. I remember that. Yep. You guys were just doing kind of like this small loops and keeping moving the
flag,
memorial flag. And I think I walked like one loop with you or something throughout the day, and then just shared stories with a bunch of other people that were also really connected and emotional about the day. Yeah. And it had an impact on me. Fast forward, a year later, we have 1,000 people out there. Yeah. The 2019 9/11 run. And then last year, the 2020, it's our first year that we've done only virtual options and had some meetups here and there for small groups around the country. But it was amazing to see, 1,200 people sign up to do a virtual challenge run and ask people to send in pictures and little video snippets of them talking about what 9/11 is and to them what it means. Yeah. And it's been, that's kind of the catalyst for what we're doing right now, because we found people have the need to talk about it.
Yeah. So you said you're in high school in 2001, and so you joined the military right after that?
Yeah. So I had actually joined before that. So I graduated in May of 2001 from high school here in Boise, and I made the decision right about that point. So it's probably April or May that I joined. So my parents and their Vietnam generation, my dad was a Navy pilot in Vietnam, they always pushed on me like the importance of service and sacrifice, but they were anti-war people, honestly, after their experience in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. So I was the youngest out of 4 kids, and no one ever joined the military, but I did. And I'll never forget how interesting it was, because that's in the shadow of essentially the Gulf War, right? And then some small conflicts, and I'm not taking anything away from the veterans of these conflicts, but Panama, Grenada, just smaller in short, in terms of duration, at least in numbers of participants, action. So I remember at some point it came up in conversation because I wanted to join the Marine Corps and be an infantryman. And I believe it was my dad said, like, hey, there's never going to be like an infantry war again. And that was in 2001, before 9/11. So, yeah. So I was slated to go in mid-September of 2001 to MCRD San Diego for a Marine Corps boot camp.
Yeah.
And things changed.
So did you go in September then?
I did. I did. It got delayed a little bit, if I recall, because the airports got shut down.
Did your parents say anything? Like, did they try to talk you out of it after 9/11?
No. God, no. My parents are patriots. They just had a different take. Like, I wasn't allowed to have, like, toy guns and G.I. Joes when I was a kid. You see how well that worked out. But, you know, I get it. Like, they didn't want me to be exposed to things that they saw a lot of their friends exposed to during that time period of Vietnam, and fighting take all the politics away from it. It was an unpopular war, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and means nothing about like the purpose of it and the sacrifice that so many people did. But I think that was their takeaway from that experience was, hey, like, we don't want you to be burdened with this. But they, whatever, one way or another, and this is just me, you know, they raised me and my siblings to value service, public service, you know, whether it's cops, firefighters, military personnel, like, they're all doing it for us. Mm-hmm. And so for me, in my experience, which started off as basically a catastrophic failure in the Marine Corps, to coming out and then starting my college experience, I remember very distinctly when I was living my like little childhood dream, playing football in college and having a great time. I couldn't help shake the guilt, because that's right when Iraq started. And my buddies that had done all the right things in the Marine Corps were going to Iraq and in the invasion, getting hurt, getting banged up. Even through 2005, you know, when I'm a junior right now, or junior in college at that time, and I knew what I was going to have to do, and I just knew I felt called to serve, especially in this capacity, and I kind of felt, if not, like, I can do this, I can be good at this. That's what I felt like. I was probably really arrogant.
Did you feel guilty that you weren't with your friends, or did you feel more a requirement to serve and do this for your country?
It was much more than my friends.
Yeah.
People that I didn't even know. I was probably unhealthily obsessed with 9/11, honestly. Like, I remember reading the 9/11 Commission report, like cover to cover.
Yeah.
As a, you know, college sophomore or whatever. And it just infuriated me. I remember at one point, you know, because it was a unique decision, I guess, for a football player at that time, because that was what was paying for school for me, to say, like, hey, you know, this is what I'm going to do after my senior year season of football. So the Daily Bruin, the college newspaper, put out this article, and it was on 9/11. And they had perspectives from different people. I just happened to be one of them, because I was a guy that was all amped up and ready to go serve in Iraq or Afghanistan or wherever they sent me. And I wanted to do so in the highest capacity I could. And there was a perspective from a current student that was a recently separated Iraq and Afghanistan vet. And he was like, hey, like, I really appreciate, you know, Dan's, you know, at that, you know, like, my perceived desire for vengeance, I guess, would probably be the most honest term.
Yeah.
But I felt like there was a lot of unfinished business, and it felt to me already at that point that people had started drifting away from 9/11, like even Iraq to a certain extent. At that time, I felt like, man, why aren't we going after the dudes that are responsible for 9/11?
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. Like, once you choose to make that decision for me, it's like, hey, I'm in. Like, I'm all in. All my questions and everything like that are going to go to the side, because I have a priority now, and especially signing up to be a leader, you don't have that luxury of playing in that political realm anymore.
Yeah. So did you intentionally head towards you went in the Army after that?
I did.
Yeah, and like, I'm going to be infantry no matter what? Or
no. I was intent on first joining with an 18 X-ray contract. Yeah. So I intended to enlist, and there's a program that I think still exists, I'm not sure, that you could enlist specifically to have an opportunity to go to Special Forces Assessment and Selection, or SFAS. When I voiced that intent, then there was an Army colonel named Sean Buck who reached out to me because he saw this whatever article in the paper, because I was doing fundraisers at the time for like the Pat Tillman Foundation and the Intrepid Fallen Heroes Foundation at that time, who had great missions, and they've totally evolved since then. But both good organizations. Anyway, that got some attention because I was running like marathons and triathlons in the off season of football. And that's where I said, like, hey, this is what I'm going to do. So this Colonel Buck contacted me and was like, hey, you know, you sound like you're a leader. Like, at the time I was lucky enough to be like a team captain on my football team. Not that equates at all, but he's like, you should probably consider being a leader. And I was like, you should probably consider my background. Yeah. And, but at that time, you know, that was coming up on the height of the Iraq war. Afghanistan starting to pop off again. And long story short, I was talked into it by, a really great charismatic leader who saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and it gave me an opportunity to do that. And not to go down like the whole story of Dan or anything like that, it just really, I cannot understate how 9/11 was so centric to my thinking at that time. You think now everyone's like, yeah, bin Laden's dead. But that time, he was 5-6 years away from being dead.
Right.
And it's a lot more than him for me to see these 19 terrorists hijack these planes and to listen to the stories and read the transcripts from the 9/11 Commission report, which I think every American should read, by the way. If you don't have to actually look or, even on our podcast, listen to people in their last phone calls.
Yeah.
Or, what the friggin', what the dispatch operators had to deal with on 9/11 and people, basically sharing their last moments with another human being on a phone call with a stranger. It's beyond the pale. And granted, I get like goosebumps. Like, I'm not one to say like there are a lot of dirty things in war, as you well know from your experiences. I just think that the deliberate targeting, like terrorism, like the deliberate targeting of innocent people, is never acceptable by anyone for any theology, policy, doesn't matter, don't care. It's completely unacceptable, and I feel still to this day a need for justice.
So after, when did you leave on your last deployment? Like 2017?
2017.
So were you able to still ride that sentiment? Do you still have that? Was it as strong 10 years later when you're
100%.
heading out the door? Wow.
100%
That's
it was,
awesome.
although it shifted. So
Yeah.
in 2017, my mission shifted quite literally. My team's mission shifted away from people that may have borne some responsibility for 9/11 to ISIS.
Yep.
But ISIS was just as bad, and still to this day, dude, I'm the worst.
Yeah.
They are by far the worst in my opinion. And there's little glimpses in there too. I think of an Iraq trip where it's like, you think like, hey, in my mind, like I'm getting some sort of degree of vengeance for 9/11.
Yeah.
But when you really break it down, it's like a teenage kid, basically like an inner city gangbanger here in the United States that's a part of Jaish al-Mahdi or pick some sort of militant group that is trying to kill American soldiers. Mm-hmm. Why they're doing it though? They're not hardcore believers. I mean, not all of them. A lot of them are just kids that are trying to get clout with the girls in the neighborhood. They're trying to get some money. They're trying to get a motorbike and some black Pumas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so it's hard to justify all those things. And it doesn't matter politics of it, but what does matter to me is I really, from my first infantry experience, I had a deeper desire at that point to do whatever I could to be with whatever unit that would go after, in my mind, the most needing of that type of justice. And that was just me.
Yeah.
And I don't think I was the only one, but that, and not that I was anything cool or anything like that. It just, I had a deep desire to do so, and I did the best I could with the time I had, I guess. And, then it came to an end quickly. But I mean, what transpired for you? Because you were already joined. You were at West Point and on 9/11/2001. How did that change the feel of everything?
I was a junior, so one thing, the second you start your junior year at West Point, you're fully committed. Yeah. If you get kicked out of West Point, you're serving 5 years. Like you're
enlisted.
Yeah, so you're you're committed, and you're set. So there's 2 classes below us when it happened who still had the decision. Prior they watched it happen, literally about 50 miles away, because West Point is just north of New York City. So I always remember prior, there's the guys who like went to Bosnia and were doing all the Kosovo stuff, and I remember I was like, man, I hope I get to a unit that goes to Kosovo and get that opportunity. And then that changed instantly. It was like, man, it's going to be we're all going to have the chance to go overseas in a different capacity now. I do remember a interesting story. It was like so it was at the end of that year when the seniors are graduating. I remember one of my friend's dads, he was a general officer, commanded like corps level, like very high level general officer. And he was talking to us out on one of the roads right in front of the barracks there at West Point. And he was basically saying, his older son, who was graduating, you know, in the next few days, was going to have a chance to fight. He was like, and he made kind of the offhand comment. I was like, it's too bad you guys are going to miss it. I remember thinking to myself, like, damn, I hope there's still, you know, something I can be part of on this.
And here we are 20 years
later.
later.
And here we are. You know, I laugh. I was like, oh, there wasn't much wisdom in that statement he made. So, but it would just literally instantly change to a wartime footing, like from talking about Bosnia, like literally the hour prior to, you know, kicking off the GWOT.
Yeah, it's so interesting too. I remember, you know, because I'm going to boot camp just in the, you know, the eve after this thing. And, you know, we're all wearing our woodland camis and shining our black boots and using M16A1s, and how quickly that transformed, like so quickly, really blink of an eye. It's amazing how when shit's important, the military gets it done really quick. Yeah. Versus normal government, military bureaucracies, things move at the speed of smell. You know what I mean? But then it was like, hey, this is happening. And I remember being jealous as a college student because I was wearing my woodland camis, which I love. They're the best camouflage pattern ever, but except for Cryptic and all the other cool ones. But I remember being jealous of the people with their new ACUs. Yeah. And not because ACUs were cool. They basically look pink to me. They're hideous. But because I knew what that meant. So like the seniors would get their ACUs in preparation to go to IOBC and Ranger School in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I'm like, I hope I don't miss it. Yeah. I felt that exact same way.
Yeah. And it started to hit home. So at lunch, the whole corps of cadets, so there's 4,000 cadets that eat in the same dining facility, all in about 15 minutes. And it's amazing to see. And about halfway through that meal, they stop and they'll do some announcements. But pretty quickly, I remember, I want to say in my junior year, that same year after we went in Afghanistan, they would announce names of any West Point then Army officer who was killed overseas. And so it became pretty frequent where people you 100% knew in the Corps of Cadets when you were there was already being killed in action. So it was serious. Like it was, I don't want to say impressive to see, but it hit home almost on a daily basis, hearing the names. And then people you knew. When I played lacrosse there, our team captain lost both his legs early on, and he was then at our graduation, already back, and you hadn't even gotten into the fight yet. He's already coming back, changed for life, and you're seeing him right there. It was just you saw it on display every day versus a regular college.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that because one of my classmates there, he was a year ahead of us, same thing. He was killed on my birthday in 2007 in Mosul, and that had an effect on everybody, like people changing their branch of service. Not branch of service as in like Army, Navy, right? But in Army they call it branch. So if you want to go infantry or armor or signal or you know whatever, and people were like, "Oh shit!" I thought I wanted to be an infantry guy, but maybe not now. And then I don't blame people. Everyone's different, and I think it's actually a thing that's should happen more. Yeah, because people should be able to self-select out of things that they're not fully committed to, especially in a leadership position.
Yeah. I think we saw the opposite because infantry, is where you're going to be fighting on the ground. And infantry branch, actually, it's all, you get your branch by class rank. Yep. Typically, infantry did not go out. So if you want to be infantryman, you could do it. People flooded to that opportunity, and infantry branch even went out. And I have some close friends whose grades were not good enough to get infantry, which was quite humorous to us. Yep. And then another interesting story. So Hamid Karzai came to West Point when we were there.
No shit.
Yeah. So he ate lunch with the Corps of Cadets. I want to say that was still my junior year, maybe early my senior year, but that's within a year of him being pulled out by the U.S., he came in. I remember he walked from me to you, walked right by, going by. I was like, man, that's Karzai right there, and you get to see all that stuff firsthand.
It's legit. I think about it now, and I guess I have had thoughts. I know we voiced this together before different times and talked about these things, but it's interesting how other people, like my dad's generation, or my grandfather's generation, have a war. Like World War II, World War I, Korea, Vietnam. And then we have this kind of like nebulous global war on terror, or the GWOT. And I mean, the places you've been in the GWOT, you've been Iraq, Afghanistan, North Africa, different places. I've been to the Philippines. Like there's not one place, and it is hard, I think, to galvanize people in a war against an ideology, which really, if you break it down, the global war on terror puts, I want to say all of us, but, you know, the military as a whole in kind of a tough position. Just think of like the war on drugs.
Yeah.
Because you're not fighting like a finite enemy. You're fighting an ideology, and how do you stem that with kinetic action?
Yeah.
I don't know.
How do you define the end state? If you're doing it, if you're a part of it, I think you have to take the time to develop your own reasoning or argument why you're a part of that.
Yeah.
So, because you have to be able to talk to the random civilian family member who doesn't see that perspective. Like, I don't get the end state in this. You have to be able to say why it's important and what you've seen. And it's not easy, but I think a lot of military guys and women don't take the time to like clearly figure out what that reasoning is.
I think you have to, especially if you're in any kind of unit that's like a high tempo deployment, like, because you're missing a lot. You're missing the birth of your children. You're missing and hurting relationships, whether it's with your family or your spouse, like at a certain extent. But for me, I guess my answer was always really simple. To me, it was to protect the homeland. And that was directly from 9/11. And then, yes, people, depending on, you know, whatever person I was talking to, be like, well, do you really think you're protecting the homeland by doing X, Y, and Z? And I guess my answer was always yes.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm disrupting these groups that maintain this ideology that Americans should be killed for whatever reason, whether they're military targets or not. And to me, that's unacceptable.
I think we can look back, 20-year anniversary, you can look back and say, hey, there's never been another 9/11 in the past 20 years. It's, you could argue otherwise, like, well, would have never, if we didn't go to Iraq or whatever, there still wouldn't have been. But like, I feel pretty confident in being a part of that, and there having not been a 9/11 since then. So I'm totally comfortable with it. And it has, it wasn't just a single, like, Gulf War I single event war for us with a clearly defined end, but I honestly could not imagine living my life having not done this.
I agree.
It makes me sick to my stomach to think, having not been a part of this and not meeting the people and being around just the people that are involved in this. It's just they're the best people in the world. Yeah. So
it is really, everyone has different numbers, but I think one of the ones that stands out, and I don't know if it's exactly true or not, but basically 0.45% of the country, the national populace of the United States, 0.45, so less than 0.5%, has actually fought, like, in combat, direct combat with someone else in the global war on terror. There's many more than that qualify as combat veterans, and that's totally fine, that are deployed to a combat zone in the past 20 years. But that's a significant minority of our country's populace, because we did this 20-year war without a draft.
Yep.
And so you have the people volunteering over like 7, 10, 15, 20 deployments. It's not unheard of. Yeah. Especially in special operations units. Guys are going, and women are going all the time back and forth. And you think of the ripple effects on how that affects just one of those people's families. Yeah.
I feel comfortable, my kids get to grow up around that, and they get to see that. And, a secondary effect is they get to meet the Dan Nelsons. They meet, all the friends that you're getting to do that overseas with. Those are incredible families. It's what an opportunity for them to have that example. Like, it's a small portion of our population that's doing it, and they're just so incredible.
It's funny you say that, because to me, what Mission 43 does on and around 9/11, just so critical. I have 2 young boys, and they have memories and experiences of me serving in some capacity, but at the same time, I want them to know why. And 9/11 is a tough subject to talk about in some respects with your kids, and I think some people just avoid it altogether. I don't know if I've gone overboard or not, but terrorism as a whole is something that's, to American kids, it's hard to conceptualize, which I'm really happy about. But at the same time, I don't know how to like truly quantify how important it is for young kids and families to make it be a topic of discussion, whichever way they want to take it, because this affected so many lives on that day. Over 3,000 Americans killed in a morning.
Yeah.
On our turf.
Yeah.
In New York City, in Pennsylvania, in Washington, D.C. And then how that's created this generation of warfighters and servants, and then the kids that are connected to them. Mm-hmm. I think it's really unique, and I hope that what we do as Mission 43 has an impact on the next generation, even though, it's not what we set out to do. It's not what you set out to do when you created this with JCAF. But it falls in nicely with creating the same type of environment for the families that we serve.
Yeah. One thing I always kind of in the back of my mind, how do you make this not like a Pearl Harbor reminiscing, because my grandfather was in World War II, you kind of always have those stories, at what point are you just kind of just always latched on to this same thing. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, it's just it's always in my mind though of not overdoing it, but just making sure it's you don't forget about it. And
yeah, it's hard for anything like this, right? Just like a funeral of a loved one.
Yes,
you can make it a big deal for that 2 hour, 3 hour span and dump out all your emotions and share that for 2 or 3 hours with somebody else. But how do you have that longer lasting impact? Mm-hmm. How do you have someone hey, I remember I met this guy or that woman that actually had some connection to either 9/11 the day of or the subsequent wars after, and that made an impact on me. I think that's really unique because there's so many perspectives, because there's so many GWOT veterans. Yeah. Post 9/11 veterans, just by numbers, there's a lot because it lasted 20 years and there's a high turnover rate in the military. And I don't know, it's just really impressive. And I think that I'm glad that you started out, and you and Tony and the rest of the OG Mission 43 crew started out with the focus on this. It's what drew me and a lot of people, I think, like me, to this organization. Because there wasn't a lot to do before on 9/11 before that. No,
and you're doing a great job now. Looking forward to this year's 9/11 run and continuing, honestly, carrying that flag. And what's cool is how we've incorporated the families, and kids can be there, and it's just a good family event. It's not just belaboring the past, and so
it's not just a sorrow fest or us parading around the depressing nature of terrorism as a whole, or the bad things about the global war on terror. It's a celebration of life, service, and sacrifice. And I think, I hope that this year, the 20th anniversary, we mobilize thousands of people, 2,000-3,000 of people will come out to Eagle Bike Park. It starts on Saturday at 3 p.m. on 9/11. It's actually on the day. So if you're looking for something to do, I tell the people out there on 9/11, the 20th anniversary, come to Eagle Bike Park. It's free. We're doing this for the community because it's important to us. It's important to us as Americans, as Idahoans, and as service members of the global war on terror. So if you, whether you're military, civilian, or anywhere in between, we just want you to come out and experience and share in the experience of the significance of this day and the 20th anniversary of it. And in that, I would also like to say thank you, which we don't often do, but probably should more often, to all the people that continue to keep us safe. Yeah. The people that are still in Afghanistan right now, still in all other places in the world that people don't even know they're at, and cops and firefighters all over this country that are doing their thing to make sure that when bad stuff happens, that good people make good choices and heroic acts.
Definitely. Well, it's good talking to you about this. Kind of fun to actually take some deliberate time to reminisce a little bit. And
it's easy to brush over, right?
Yeah.
But thank you, man.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for joining us for the Mission 43 podcast. Our purpose is to provide you opportunities to lead, learn, and inspire throughout your Idaho communities.
We want to hear what you thought. Like, subscribe, or leave a comment below.